Hi guys, welcome back. So I guess you've seen the title of the video. It's not even remotely clickbait. In the history of airgun target shooting, there is one pellet that above all else almost has a mythical status now. As a young lad through the 1990s, looking at all the top shots all around Europe and America and the UK, the pellets they were using were the old Crosman Premier ultra magnums. They were commonly referred to as prems, particularly the die 2s. Now they used to turn up in a little cardboard box, a bit like some of the modern slugs do. Nowadays, they're almost a collector's piece, but the amount of people that absolutely swore by these back in the day was incredible. You'd see fellas with Ripleys and EV2s, in fact pre-EV2s, RN10s, GC2s, all of the older field target rifles that are now collectible, almost virgin on antique. They were all running these Premiers. Now, as a young lad, I barely could ever get my hands on these. I wasn't really in the right circles to get the best of the Die 2 Premiers. However, we did later on manage to get the Webley Accupels. Now, the latest Accupels are not the Premiers inside. These older ones, these are a 7.9 grain Premier in there. And I actually used to use these for a few competition rifles. This is a very old tin, as you can see. This tin's probably coming on 15 years old. But something happened. They fell out of favour. They basically don't feature anywhere now in any high level of competition. So we're going to go and test some of the latest ones. We're going to put them through some really tricky conditions. It's really windy out there. We'll start shorter ranges, but I'm going to push them out to 55 yards and then 66 yards. We're really going to test them in the wind and see what happens. But there's an awful lot to talk about, especially this bit. Doesn't say made in America anymore. Built in America potentially means something quite different. So we're going to get these tested and we'll see whether or not they live up to the hype of old. I don't know. I've been putting this video off. I remember these very, very fondly, and looking at these, they don't look too great. So I hope that they prove me wrong. I'll see you at the farm. Right, and guys, we're here. So you know the score. We're just under 25 yards at the moment. We're going to run a few groups out now. The XTI was zeroed up with JSB heavies. I've been shooting them in the evenings for a little while. We've got a bit of a breeze running. We're going to just get some groups done here. Then we're going to push out to 55 yards. So that's the maximum distance you'll find on a field target course. And then if we get any reasonable results, we've got a little bit further out the back as well. So we'll go out to 66 yards after that. I'll be honest, I've been putting this test off. Nostalgia is a powerful thing, and I've seen these decline a little bit over the years. We used to use the Accupels, the 7.9 grain versions of these, through a lot of our target rifles a few years ago. So I hope they're decent. I mean, they look absolutely terrible in the tin, but granted, they always have. They've been one of the nastiest looking pellets yet. In their heyday, they would shoot fantastically, and even those, they were full of swarf in the tins of Mankey. So we'll almost certainly end up with lead all over our fingers. But the Walther barrel in this, we know it's not particularly fussy. It seems to group pretty well with most things. So I'm just going to back this off to 10 mag, just adjust my focus, get the GoPro on down the end, and we'll run a few groups off and see how it pans out. I hope something cool happens, because they're quite sensibly priced. It'd be nice if they grouped like we remember them, really. That's the main thing. Like I say, when you look back and you think of all of the top shots using them, they were a deadly pest control pellet, and over the years they've gradually declined in popularity. Now hopefully with these latest ones they might be half decent, so I really hope so. So get everything set up and we'll run some groups out. Keep an eye on the little wind indicator string there. It's actually pretty breezy, so it will affect the groups a little bit, but I really do hope that these are as good as I remember them. Right. Hopefully the GoPro's not too close. We're going to start on the second row from the left. Just going to run off some 5-shot groups, and this was zeroed for JSB heavies, which are pretty much the same weight, so hopefully we're somewhere near the target. Oh, right, well that often happens once you've been shooting JSBs first. Your first couple of a next brand of pellet will go straight through the same hole, but then we may well find they open up a little bit. But that's a pretty encouraging start, almost bang on the zero. Get a few walking off a little bit. Right, they weren't too bad for the first 5, so we'll move down to the little target just below that one. I'll run a few more off and we'll see how they go. Like I said, we've got a decent breeze running out the back, so it'll be the real test. Now, bearing in mind these were one of the most famous field target pellets from the 90s and into the early 2000s, they should be shot out to 55 yards in all weather. So we've got a decent bit of wind running. We're going to test them anyway. We'll see whether or not I can actually hit some 40mm targets at 55 yards. I've also got my little mini 6mm target That's what I've been filming in the evenings of late. I've been trying different pellets through this. I've just set up the anchors as well. That's now a bit more optimised to sit slightly better off the bag, and ultimately the plan is to run these out to 100 yards. Don't think it'll be with these pellets, mind, but we'll carry on and we'll see how it pans out. Right, let's go have a quick look at those. Well, that's not a bad start. We've scattered ones as though just getting settled into the barrel. So these squares are just under 5mm each. So that's just under a centimetre across. So not too bad at all. We'll run a few more through and see how it pans out. I'm just going to make a quick scope adjustment to bring them back onto the 0. Then we'll do a couple more groups here and then we'll go straight out and see what they like at range, shall we? Well, those are the last two, so a little bit of elevation change there. Now one of these felt particularly tight on loading. Now that's probably the one that went up high. These little groups, look, I mean that is probably 8mm, so certainly not the best, but definitely far from the worst. So considering how poor these pellets look, there's little seams and everything on them, I'm surprised that they group as well as they do. So overall, not great, but certainly I have seen worse, and to be honest, absolutely fine for pest control. That's still completely humane. So we'll get them out to 50 metres now and we'll see how they run in the wind. Right, me again, I'm doing the edit at the moment. I've just found there's an AI based wind reducing thing on here, so I'm going to reduce the wind noise in here, so hopefully you should be able to hear what I'm saying a bit better. I also asked the AI thing if it could make me look like a better shot. Apparently there isn't an AI system that's powerful enough to do that, so we'll have to just carry on as we are. Right then, so we're just setting up for 50 metres. We've got Crowzilla on the floor, that's a 40mm. Got the Phoenix there, it's a 40mm. I'm going to set the biathlon target up for later on when we move out to 66 yards. So 50 metres, 55 yards, and then we've got 66 yards behind that. This is the card we were just shooting. You can see I've flipped it now into portrait. I've just put a little dot here. This is going to be my aim point for 25 yards, so we can monitor the drifts and the drops. Now the wind is really pushing through, so we're likely to get some elevation change. The wind's running from right to left, so there's going to be a fair bit of movement on that as well. Once we've established some drifts and drops and got something of an idea of an aim point, then we'll move on and see whether or not I can knock these targets down. Right, so this is where the target is, and we're back here. Tape measure, 50 metres, 55 yards, give or take a smidge. Target's down the end, you should be able to see that in the top right of your picture. I've also got the wind flag, and we've got a really stout wind at the moment. It's coming towards us, almost directly towards us, swinging around sort of between 12 o'clock and sort of 1:30, 2 o'clock at the moment. So we will see some elevation change. We're going to get a bit of wind drift as well. So just going to run some groups off into the top card to see if I can establish an aim point or whether they even hit the card at all. I'm up on 20 mag now, just adjust the side focus and we'll run some off. Okay, that's pretty good. About 3mm dots of drop and about 1mm dot of drift from the right to the left. Now the conditions won't be consistent through the test, so we are going to get a scattered group, but I'll see if I can pick an aim point and then actually knock the targets down. If I've driven halfway across the country to get to a competition, the most important thing for me is to know that my ammo is consistent in the wind. Then I can aim off, make my allowances and hopefully knock the targets down. Right, well they're vaguely in the same area, that's pretty good. So the wind had dropped off a little bit more for that shot, and it's actually dropped slightly more than the shot before it where the wind was pushing towards us. So when you've got the wind coming straight towards you, you'll often find that you get slightly less drop at this sort of range. Right, so we've actually got a few of those that are stacked right on top of each other, which is encouraging. It also means that if we was to weigh some of these, possibly sort them, wash them, clean them up, because they are grotty looking pellet like we would have done years ago with our competition ammo, then we'd probably be able to get some decent groups out of these. Definitely not quite as tight as a JSB heavy would be. I know that because I've been shooting the heavies each evening at that 6mm. That's the target we're going to shoot later on, that 6mm little reset target. We've been shooting that from 66 yards in the evening. I'm compiling some footage. Ultimately I want to take this and the anshuts out to 100 yards, so I've been practicing getting them optimised to shoot off the bag. That video will follow soon, I should think. We've got a drop of around 3 to 3.5mm dots, so I should be able to pick up an aim point. I'm going to go and move the GoPro now onto the metal targets and see whether or not we can knock them down. Right, I've just moved the GoPro onto the metal targets. We'll have a go at them 40 millers and see whether or not we can hit those. Now, of course, I've got the luxury of being able to shoot off a bag. You try doing this in a stiff breeze off your knee. Pretty tricky, this old field target lark. Oh, you idiot, what happened there? Well, I well and truly misjudged that one. Wow. Oh, took a fair bit of wind, that one. Completely 9 o'clocked it, so got my elevation right. Didn't read the wind well enough. Wow. I can't hit a barn door today. Wow. It's really fun making YouTube videos, you know, and trying to look really cool on film. Normally, it all goes to plan. But these are pretty hard to judge. Oh, 10 o'clock. That's a huge target as well. I've got a nice stable platform. I just can't judge where these are going to go. So I'm aiming off for every shot here, making adjustments for the wind, a little bit of elevation change, but these are really unpredictable. Oh. Finally. Woodpecker over the back there somewhere. Right, we'll go for the crow on the floor. How many shots was that? That was too many. And that one goes down first time. Right, so on the biathlon target, they are 27mm circles. I don't think we stand much chance with the 12mm in the middle, but we'll go for the very right hand of the 27mm on the biathlon target. Right, well that one's dropped over. I was actually aiming for the one to the right of that. These are pretty sketchy in the wind. So we got that one, but I was aiming off 2 and a bit mil dots that time, aiming to the right. Just nicked it in the top left hand corner. Okay, now I'm getting an eye for them. This is why it's important to shoot in the wind, guys. I know a lot of you go, well, why aren't you shooting indoors? But getting that first one down took a little while just to get a gauge of what the wind's doing, how the pellets are performing down range is so important. Now I've got a better idea on how they're performing in the wind. You can see that we're starting to get some slightly better results. Oh, didn't give that one quite enough. Got a couple still standing on them 27mm. Oh, I think we might have split that one. I don't think that was a clean hit on that. If you keep an eye on the grass here as well, you'll see how much it's all moved around. Ooh, and again, just came in a little bit high. So what we're going to do, we're going to move back to 66 yards now. And then just for the sake of it, we're going to have a go at that 6mm target on there because I want to get some footage as well for another video. So I'm going to move everything back, I'm going to move the GoPro around, and I'll see you back there. Okay, so you can see we've moved back now, tape measures there, the wind flag's still where it was. This is a bit of a silly idea, but I quite like pushing my limits. I'm getting a better idea of what the wind does at this sort of range. I think it'd be more luck than judgment if we can keep all the shots on the actual target itself. Wow. That dropped way low. That one spiraled off. They're really unstable at this range. That dropped really low. They're literally all over the place. At this range, they're just completely unstable. I'm not sure what the size of that target is. It's probably the best part of 3 inches. And actually getting anything onto it is near impossible. Oh, we're actually on the target itself. No, hopeless. So I've been using the JSB heavies out here. I've been using the H&Ns, the 451s from a previous video as well. And I can tell you this much, they are significantly easier to judge at this range and further. Hopeless, not a chance. Well, that's disappointing. I mean, this is a ridiculous range to be pushing in the wind, but decent bit of kit. Thought these might be alright. Thought we might get something of a group. Anyway, we'll get these cards back. We'll have a look at home. Right guys, it's a few days later. Well, I've got to be honest, the results were quite disappointing. They were actually all right. At 25 yards in a gentle breeze down the alleyway there, they're absolutely fine. Absolutely good enough for pest control, short range target work, plinking in your garden, just your average general air gunning. However, taking them out to 55 yards, that was ridiculous. I just could not get a grasp of what these were doing. They were all over the place, and as soon as that wind changed slight direction, there was a big elevation change. Now, there's also quite a variation in size of these. Some of these would load quite nicely, some of them were a lot tighter. With the loading arrangement of the XTI, actually, it's unusual to notice that big a difference. However, there's quite a slack variation throughout these. So it's no wonder that they don't feature really at all in any sort of high-end competition nowadays, which is a real shame. They used to be, and I certainly remember them as, one of the best pellets available for a number of years. Now, we don't have the budget to go and find an original pack of these. If anyone's got a few odd ones in the UK that wants to lend me some, well, you can have them back once I've shot them. But if we can get our hands on some, I'll certainly test them side by side. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, these latest ones are not great. I'm also curious about this. It says built in America there. Now, I've got a lot of customers in America. I know about 20% of my viewers are American, and they're all fiercely patriotic. If they were made in America, that would say made in America. So potentially the production's been shifted elsewhere. That may also coincide with the likes of Webley rebranding. Webley now, I believe, use H&Ns. They rebrand them as the AccuPels. So yeah, unfortunately, it looks like, as with most things, the Premiers have got old. We've lost our talent that we used to have, but I certainly remembered these very fondly. But at 66 yards, I've cut a lot of the footage out. It was absolutely horrific. Now, that target with the 6mm hit in the middle is basically just under the size of a pellet tin. Now, I only managed to get a few pellets on there. At 55 yards, it wasn't too bad. I managed to get a few lucky shots off on the 27mm targets, but by 66 yards, they were absolutely all over the place. And I actually put a few shots into this card because I think by then they were so unstable. These are our pellet strikes. These are the pellet strikes at 55. So we did manage to get something of a group in that wind. But hopefully you can see here, at 66 yards, that almost looks like a hole punch. So I don't know whether they've gone through sideways, whether they've gone through backwards, or whatever's happened. They've completely punched out a different shape hole, a much cleaner hole as well, at 66 yards. But it took me a while to actually even get them onto paper. So yeah, that's a bit disappointing, really. Maybe I'm just remembering things better, but there's still people that absolutely swear by the old Die 2 Premiers, so they probably are a significantly different pellet to these, because the results speak for themselves from years ago. They were certainly winning everything. Now JSB seem to have taken over and are the Premiers of new, I guess. So overall, a little bit disappointing. Really tricky conditions. It was nice. It was good fun to test. It was nice to get out in that real wind. I'm certainly getting a better eye for it, but I can tell you this, I'm no slouch in the wind, and they were basically impossible to control. So yeah, we'll leave it like that, and I think I'll catch you in the next one, guys.